item number 12 stating 3 immediate disclosure requests. That is a clerical error where these 3 items were consolidated into one. I did separate it out into 3 separate files to constitute 1 immediate disclosure request for each file.
Because they all occur very close to each other.
Yes, it was, as far as I know, they are the same subject matter on 3 different dates.
Next time, 1 file. It's actually 1
Through the
page.
chair, may I ask Mr. Garza a question?
Hold on. Yeah, sure. Right there you go. Do you need to determine jurisdiction?
I believe Mr. Fuller has a comment.
Mr. Bell?
I think in the complaint description, it referenced that these were IDRs on 3 separate dates, but everything in the file that I found indicated that it was all the same dates.
It's within minutes of each other.
Yes.
That's what I read. Yeah, okay. And is jurisdiction contested by either party? Seeing not, can we find jurisdiction?
Do we have a mover?
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
Objection?
Is there any public comment on jurisdiction? There's no public comment. The jurisdiction is found without objection.
Okay. Mr. Garza, please approach. Member Davis can ask you a quick question, and then you'll have your...
So, Mr. Garza, I'm just curious, I feel like we've heard these issues from you in the past, and I just want to know, is the fundamental issue that you're bringing up before us today that you believe that your medical records are public records? Is that what we're fundamentally going to be discussing again?
I know that my medical records are public records. It's been decided by the Sunshine Task Force as such in the past.
So the answer is yes, that is.
But that is not what we're going to be discussing today. What we're going to be discussing today is the fact that I went to the emergency room 3 different times, 3 different dates, and was denied emergency care. And then when I went to go seek the records for that, which are supposedly medical records, I was denied those under the IDRs. Why this was consolidated, I do not know. This was 3 separate incidents, 3 separate dates, over 3 separate months. So, truly, I don't see where my due process is being afforded here.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome very much.
To 5 minutes to give us the background of these 3 cases.
I'm sorry, 5 minutes for each case or 5 minutes for all 3 cases?
All 3 cases.
And why is that if I asked for them to be, separate and they're separate and I never agreed to them being consolidated?
It's our discretion to take them as 1 case. So you have up to 5 minutes to give us your summary.
So 3 different incidents, I'm only going to have 5 minutes. Well, okay, I need the overhead projector turned on. Please, can you turn that off so I can get situated and started? Since I don't agree, but we'll just do it. All right. All right. On 4:30 and thank you. On 4:30 and 7:23 and 7:29, I went to. On 4:30, 7:23 and 7:29, I went to San Francisco General Hospital seeking emergency services. EMTALA, which is the anti-patient dumping statute, which is there for difficult patients and other things, requires that a medical screening examination must be provided when you're seeking emergency services. The burden of proof shifts to the hospital. That's what this is all about. I was never provided with a medical screening examination the 3 times that I went. That's what I requested through my IDRs. That has to be there by law. So, that's the EMTALA law. The reason I'm so knowledgeable in this subject is because in 2001, when my soulmate died, I went to San Francisco General seeking emergency services and was denied emergency services. And here is the settlement agreement by the Office of Inspector General in 2007 that was signed by both San Francisco General and the Office of Inspector General. We're in number 6. They admit that they did not provide an appropriate medical screening, which is required by law when you show up for emergency. And here is the signature of the guilty parties. 2007 by Gene O'Connell for San Francisco General and Kathleen Murphy, the counsel for the General Hospital. And on the next page, the signatures by the OIG. So once again, the Department of Public Health has violated and broken medical law because nobody enforces medical law, which is what I've been here before many times. They've always said that my medical records are not public records, which they are many times. Here is all the proof that once again I was denied emergency services. I even have the videos to show you if you would like to see them, but I think, you know, the clock is ticking awfully fast, so if you do want to see those, I have the videos to show where I was denied emergency services. So I'm here not only, you know, trying to gather the evidence I need to push this up to the Office of Inspector General, which will prove that I was not given a medical screening examination, which by law must be there, which is what is in my IDR. I'm requested the medical screening examination or an admission that they broke federal law. So these are all the issues that I'm bringing forward, and I would like for them to be addressed by the Department of Public Health, which will probably tell you, because you people have never set the precedent that one's own medical records are, you know, in the public domain. And this will probably just continue again, because the next thing I'm going to be requesting is the videos for these three incidents, which we've already known from the sheriff. They don't have the videos for the other things. Hopefully the videos will be provided for these separate incidents when I sunshine them for them in addition. Also, I went to go pick up my medical records, and each time that I went, there were several times that I went to see, for example, Philip Katzenberger, who was a director there, who denied me my medical records under HIPAA, and when I took HIPAA law, because I have it, it could not be pointed out as to why. I was told that I would have to sign a HIPAA release form, which when I was sent the HIPAA release form, specifically states that you do not have to sign it. I understand this disclosure is voluntary, and I don't have to sign it. Oh, it's just amazing the different ploys that the city will use in trying to break the law, circumvent the law, and of course continue to harm me, the person who's dead right. Let me say that again, dead right. Let me say it for a third time, dead right. As proven by my settlement agreement from the Office of Inspector General, as proven by the fact that I've been here to Sunshine multiple times, and this is just going to continue to happen because you guys are powerless, and if you find them guilty and send them to ethics, nothing will come of it. So the outcome will be that nothing will change, and that I'll probably be here again when I request the videos for these three separate incidents in addition also. But this is why I'm videotaping this, so that the world can see how the Ministry of Sunshine does not work. Thank you.
Mr. Garza, can I ask you a question, please?
Go ahead.
Question asked.
Oh, okay.
Respondents, please vote.
Good evening. Nancy Soraya from the Department of Public Health. Thank you. So I'm glad it's been clarified that the three requests that are consolidated into one were received all on the same day that were minutes apart, and we're referring to three different incident dates in 2014. So in our response, and just regurgitating what I submitted on July 31st, since it was an immediate disclosure request, we responded to Mr. Garza, letting him know he was entitled to use medical records, and gave him directions as to how we could do that. On July 1st, again, we responded to the second request, letting him know that our office had no records responsive to his request for that date. And on July 31st, regarding the third request, we responded letting him know, once again, you're entitled to view your medical records, and gave him directions as to how we could obtain them. And, yeah, and so we feel like we responded to all three of these requests and fulfilled this request.
Okay. Are there other members that would like to?
Good evening, I'm Philip Katzenberg, Director of Health Information Services at San Francisco General Hospital. I would like to actually just make a notation that I did have my interactions with Mr. Garza. As noted by Nancy, that we did actually do, we provided him access, we gave him the process. He chose not to actually sign for his records. We did provide him his records, as he noted, as a document that he presented to you. As you see, there was two witnesses that were notated there, so he has any and all of his medical records at this time.
Thank you. And the third member, trying to say, no?
Just presented, it's Dr. David Pine. He actually presented Mr. Garza with the records when Mr. Garza did meet with him, so.
Okay, great, thank you very much. Go ahead.
As a as a medical record stands as being a public record versus a legal record, I'd be more than happy to explain that piece of it if the committee or the members would like.
Thank you. We'll probably get to that in a few minutes after deliberations. Okay, this matter is before the task force.
Oh, yeah, so I was just, Mr. Garza, I have a quick question for you. So you started off by saying that you were denied medical services, and you were bringing that before the task force. And you said that you showed a page and said that you went to the emergency room and you were denied medical services.
I was denied emergency services on 3 different times, and I have the videos on YouTube.
So I'm just curious, what do you, I mean, that seems way outside of what the task force's ability to resolve.
I'm not asking you to have them provide me with emergency services. Under emergency services, a medical screening examination must be performed, and that report is what I'm asking for under the IDR. That I have not received. When they said that they gave me everything, and this thing that I showed you, that thing that I showed you was based on prior records that I had asked for, not the 430, the 723, and the 729. They are mixing apples and oranges, and they're not telling you the truth. Also, when Mr. Katzenberger said that I went to go over there to see him, he did not give me the records at that particular time. Those videos are on YouTube. You're being misled.
Okay, so let me,
Please.
so you're asking for, I just want to be clear, the record that says that they denied you emergency medical services on these 3 dates. Is that what you're asking
No,
for?
sir. I just showed you Impala law. Impala law states that when I show up and declare that I am an emergency, they must provide a medical screening examination. I also showed you a signed settlement agreement where I had shown up in emergency in 2001 and had been denied that and requested a medical screening examination, and that was not provided for, and that's what the settlement agreement was signed for.
Mr. Garza, here's
Stating.
a question.
Yes, please.
What documents do you still feel you have not received?
I've not received a single medical screening examination document from 430, 723, and 729, which are the
There's
3
3 documents, and those are the, like, if you like the intake medical screening documents, that's what you're referring to, is that right?
The medical screening examination is different than triage, it's different than intake. They're totally different. Triage is not a medical screening examination, no.
Okay, medical screening examination document, okay.
Correct.
You can just take a seat, please. I actually had a question for Yvette, or, yeah, good. Phil.
Yes.
I'm sorry, give your name one more time.
FOLLOWUP Katzenberg.
Mr. Katzenberg. What is your standard procedure for receiving a patient in the circumstances Mr. Garza described? And is that document that he's describing always generated?
So the answer to your question, the process is normally a patient would come in, and there's multiple ways they would come in through the ER. If they come in on their own, they would be registered. They would actually be triaged. If they had certain symptoms, they would be processed differently with that priority. They would actually then get, like he indicated, triaged and then visited at that point. Our process of actually obtaining those documentations and so forth, if the patient's never registered, that is not something that we'd actually have a full medical record document on there. He would not be billed by that, he would not actually have any form of, view of it.
So just to clarify on that, so a medical screening examination report, if that term actually makes sense here, that would not necessarily be created anytime someone shows up at the ER. It depends on what stage you get to in your process.
You are correct in your
Okay.
thought.
So it's your position that you don't have any documents, you don't have those documents responsive to this request because those documents were never created.
That's correct.
So it's a question of, that's standard hospital policy, sometimes that document's created, sometimes it's not, depends on how the person comes in. But is there some record of someone showing up? I guess that's what I'm getting to.
We do have a log. We do
A log,
have an ability to actually monitor who comes in and who leaves.
Okay.
And we have multiple levels of when people leave, when they're not seen or when they're registered and they leave, and whether they're triaged, evaluated, and they leave in those increments, so
Gotcha.
we comply with EMTALA law.
And how they come in and how they're processed and how they're released is under your purview and your call as to your commission, et cetera, et cetera.
And I would,
Very
it's,
diligent.
as San Francisco generally, yes, but I am not, it's not my,
No,
as,
I mean you as a hospital.
yes, yes.
Thank you.
So at the risk of trying this a slightly different way, to Mr. Garza, if the department has represented that all of the medical records about you that they've given to you, and whatever other records you've asked for don't exist, given that, what else is there?
You've obviously failed to understand EMTALA law. EMTALA law states that when I show up, the burden of proof shifts to them to prove that I'm not an emergency, and a medical screening examination must be done, not a triage.
Okay,
It
but if
must
they don't
be
have-
done.
Hold on, Mr. Garza. But if they don't have that, and if we're not the medical review
Then they
committee-
broke federal law by not providing emergency services.
But we don't adjudicate federal law here. You should take that up with somebody else.
But I'm trying to get my records to prove that they didn't do that.
But they don't
But
have any. of
because
those
they
records.
broke the
don't-
law and did not provide what they were supposed to be providing
But they
with a
provided
medical
all
screening
that
examination.
That's a matter for another court.
Right.
at this point.
If they said that they provided all that exists, that's all we can do here. And if there's, if there's no other record to discover, then maybe we're done with this.
So basically, if I walk in and say that I'm an emergency, and they tell me to leave because their security guard wants me to leave, and I don't get a medical screening, you're done with it because they, don't have to do it because, like you said, that's for me to take to a different court.
Somebody else may have jurisdiction over that.
Pardon me?
Someone else may have jurisdiction over that, but not us.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you had jurisdiction over my sunshine request, which was for my medical screening examination, which by law has to be there.
Yes,
And if they don't
but-
have it,
But your issue, Mr. Garza, is whether they're legally required to provide those forms. That's nothing to do with us. You're in the wrong place.
No, my issue is that I'm supposed to try to get that form to prove that they either did or they didn't do it
You can't get it
by
from
law.
us.
Of course I can't get it because they didn't provide it and broke the law.
And that's the case for a lawyer.
Like the case I had before, where I took them to federal court, where they testified, committed fraud, had my case thrown out, only to sign a confession years later admitting that they had broken federal law. So they're free to do it again. Next time I go to emergency,
Thank you very much.
they're free to do it again.
Thank you, Mr. Garza. Please stay.
Is that your take then? Okay, I'll go again.
Members, any discussion on this? I think this is going to a very narrow point in my mind. Anybody else want to add anything? Respondents, you have up to 3 minutes to summarize your position.
So just want to add that on August 11th, 2014, Kelly Kruger, the site liaison with this department, as well as Dr. David Pine from our department, met with Mr. Garza and provided him with a copy of his medical records. And on August 11th, later on that day, Mr. Garza emailed the Department of Public Health acknowledging his meeting with Kelly Kruger and David Pine, where he received his medical records.
Thank you. Mr. Garza, you have up to 3 minutes to summarize.
Well, that is not true, because I have the videos of where I received the medical records for something prior, not these specific ones that I've been asking for. That's on the YouTube video, so that is not true. Also, the next case that we're going to be hearing is about the fact that when I received...
The next case next, please, this case now.
Okay, so basically, like I'm saying, and no, I have not received my medical records because my medical record request was for my medical screening examination, which by law must be there, unless of course they broke the law, which you're telling me I have to go somewhere else. And when I go back to emergency, I guess they're free to break the law again because that's the way it's set to fail. Thank you. This will go on YouTube.
Thank you. Members, is there any motion here? Anybody? Is there any public comment? Seeing there's no members of the public in the room, public comment's closed. With no motion,
There being no motions, the matters are concluded. Item number 13.
Mr. Garza?
Okay, this IDR was to specifically request the HIPAA release form for David Pine to have gotten my medical records, because HIPAA means that I control my medical records and who is supposed to get them. When I requested my medical records for a prior incident and everything, Dr. Pine gave them to me on 8/11, and it was witnessed by Kelly Kruger, which is what I showed you here. And it was filled out to SFGH, and it says that I don't have to sign, and he put that and he noted that. But, I nowhere in any shape or form signed a HIPAA release form for him to get my medical records to give to me. That's what my request was for in my IDR. How did he get these medical records to give to me? He's not my doctor. He's not my provider. He's not anything to do with it. And under HIPAA law, which I have to sign a release form for him to get those medical records. Or I can go in and get them myself, which I tried repeatedly and was denied. When I went to San Francisco General, and I've got multiple videos of that on YouTube. So, here is the other half of the equation. I have not been given the medical records that I sought under the IDR, which was a HIPAA release form made to Dr. David Pine so that he could get my medical records to give to me. This is a HIPAA violation.
Okay. Respondents?
So this request was for the HIPAA release form or an admission that HIPAA law was violated and broken, and Dr. Pine is going to release it.
Hey, Dr. Pine will do his best. He has a bit of laryngitis.
Dr. Pine turned to Opine. Sorry, I had to be the first to do that.
You were waiting all night for that.
I was.
I'm sorry. I'm a psychiatrist and a deputy medical director with Community Behavioral Health Services, which is the behavioral health division of the Department of Public Health. I became familiar with Mr. Garza by a different process, but it seemed to intersect with this dynamic. And when I became aware of some of his concerns about trying to obtain his medical records in person at San Francisco General Hospital, I spoke to the privacy officer and Community Behavioral Health Services and just, opined if there was something that maybe could be done, and if there's a way that I could help facilitate the process. That would have been Alice Gleghorn, from my understanding, had conversations with Mr. Katzenberger's shop, and it seemed like that they reached a determination that there would be a way, a HIPAA-compliant way, in which I could present to San Francisco General Hospital, take possession of any records that might have been copied per his requests. I never looked at those records, so I'm not even sure. It could have been blank pages in the envelope that I handed to him. And I held those in my possession, kept them safe, and when I met with Mr. Garza in person on the 11th, I delivered those to him. I asked him if he were willing to sign the release that was provided to me by SFGH. He declined, so I made a notation of that, and Sergeant Kruger from the SFPD witnessed that.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, so to comply with HIPAA, and Dr. Pine's well within the realm of actually providing information to patients. It's his discretion. He has his oath of ethics to have that discussion. What we did is we did coordinate with Dr. Pine. We had him sign a release himself that we were releasing these records to him that he would give to to Mr. Garza. So in that mind, we have a clear track of record, and that's what HIPAA complies with, which is, do we have a tracking mechanism on where and who do we provide information to? And then we clearly, we have that documented. itself is information of individuals. They're entitled for that information. We make efforts and we have process and policies that comply with Title 22, with CMS patient participation, with evidence codes. So we have a means and a mechanism to be able to provide that for the patients that do request it.
Okay, thank you very much. Member Topel.
We're done with the presentations. Maybe to Dr. Katzenberger? Dr. Pine? One of you. Maybe, or both of you. Maybe this is a chance for at least me to learn a little bit more about HIPAA, maybe the rest of the gang too. A medical provider, is that the term that HIPAA uses, or one of the terms?
So HIPAA is really more about addressing entities, right? That
Okay.
entities are like a hospital, somebody that would be a biller,
Right.
like a provider.
Okay, so within the construct of an entity,
Yes.
or a provider in this case, how do you consider public health? That it's one entity including the clinics, CDHS, General, Laguna Honda, or that they're separate operating entities all within the city? This is interesting.
Yeah, sure. Maybe
Or
I
not.
could maybe define it a little better for you in the sense of how HIPAA's arranged is for medical necessity. I think that's where you're going with is how is information shared. Under HIPAA, you can actually, it's a little acronym of PTO, right? So you have treatment, payment, or operations. If it's within those purviews, you can actually release that. You have to indicate, like you would have Dr. Pine, who would be on your registry, right? Or would be part of our DPH. What would he be his relationship? What would be his action of business to be with? That's the medical necessity.
So kind of a need-to-know basis? for
That's
lack of a better term?
correct. Yes.
Okay, so within that sort of structure or umbrella, those people that have a need to relate to the patient record can have access to that record, and it's somehow noted in the file, but that doesn't violate any prohibition against disclosure to third parties because they're within the, I guess, the T of that TPO? Did I see?
Right,
Okay.
right. So operations, right, that, and as he indicated, he also took measures by not even actually looking at the record. He
Right.
had no necessary business with that. He was actually being a conduit for it, correct? So,
Okay, I learned something.
Member Rummel.
I was just gonna weigh in and say that I don't think HIPAA compliance is where we should be going. Unfortunately, Mr. Garza, I know that's what you want us to weigh in on, but that's just way outside of what we do.
Member Garza, if you'd like to, and you're so often that I see you as a member. Mr. Garza, would you like to summarize?
Well, it's unfortunate that you've been led down a rabbit hole. Because, they keep saying that HIPAA isn't something I'm following over or that I'm not correct about HIPAA. They keep saying that they bent over backwards to give me these forms and everything else, the medical screening, and how wonderful they are. Well, my question is, why didn't they give them to me when I went down to San Francisco General, requesting them myself? Why did this whole rigmarole had to happen with David Pine and everybody else if they're not breaking HIPAA law and medical screening examination and EMTALA and everything else? I went there many times to retrieve my records, and those videos are on YouTube where I was deliberately denied by Philip Katzenberger my medical records. So does this mean that every time I have to get my medical records, I'm going to have to go through Dr. Pine or Kelly Kruger or some other person because my HIPAA rights are being violated at San Francisco General because you guys, can't weigh in on that either? It's really confusing because I guess I'm going to be coming back asking for more because apparently, none of my rights are being withheld here, because I'm entitled to my medical records. I didn't receive them. I asked for the medical screening under IDR, which must be there by law, but you guys are washing your hands of that in addition. So, I guess I'm going to have to continue to come back and continue to, be sick, and maybe one day I will die and you guys won't see me here anymore. And as you said, maybe I won't be a member of the Ministry of Sunshine. But, unfortunately, I'm dead right. So the next time I ask for my, shall we say, videos for these 3 separate incidents, because I can't ask for them, and I get denied them because they're under medical records and everything else, will we be here again recreating this wheel? I believe we will be. But that's okay, because this is what I'm expecting from the Ministry of Sunshine to post on YouTube. This is what I'm proving, is that there is no medical law enforcement, and when a person needs to get records that should be there by law, you guys don't even stand behind them. You wash your hands. So, you haven't disappointed me. Unfortunately, I'm warning you that I will be back. It's gone on for 10 years, and it will continue to go on for more years. And I've shown you and the YouTube audience of how exactly the laws are being broken and how no one is there to enforce my rights. And now you're saying that this person, Dr. Pine, was my provider. He's not my provider. Had he been my provider, then I could technically, right now sue him for abandonment because I went to him to go to a clinic, which he still hasn't set up for me. So all this is BS, and it's all on YouTube. The whole world is watching. Thank you for playing your complicit part.
Thank you. Respondents?
Yeah, so just to move back around to the actual request for a release form, as you could have saw, because Mr. Garza presented it, he mailed out using certified mail on August 21st, the release form, and it was received by Mr. Garza on August 22nd, and he emailed us saying that he was in receipt of the piece of mail that we sent him.
I'm sorry, I still wanted to learn a couple of things. So Dr. Pine, for example, or Mr. Katzenberger?
Keep it brief.
Okay, so one question. So if someone who's received treatment at a hospital or at a clinic or somewhere within DPH's system wants a copy of their medical records, if it's at SF General, do they come to your office? Are you the guy for them?
So individual clinics are gonna have their own records.
Okay.
Eventually, we will eventually get to that point, but at this point, licensing kind of defines the barriers.
Okay.
So if,
So if I'm seen at SF General for whatever reason, those records are kept at General and you're the guy on that?
That's correct.
Okay, and if I'm seen at a clinic, there's someone at each clinic that's the records person and Ms. Leghorn or somebody in the central office is responsible for coordinating that?
So yes, we have another subdivision of records in those areas.
Okay, so so what I'm getting at, for each area within DPH, there is a medical records person, and somewhere that's clear that if you want your records, here's the person to go to, there's a process, there's a form, you either sign it or you don't, you document it. There's a way for each individual to get their individual medical records wherever they're treated within DPH.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members, is there a motion? Seeing none, this matter is concluded. And I'd like to add, Mr. Clerk, in future sunshine requests, complaints that are of a medical nature, if you could add an additional threshold to talk to the complainants as to what they're actually seeking, if it's HIPAA or Title 22 related, just to make sure they understand what our purview is, what we can provide, and what we cannot opine on. That will be helpful down the road. you, Mr. Garza. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you guys for not disappointing me.
Next item.